What's going on, everybody? It's KRYPTONIAN saying here, bringing you guys another Chainsaw Man chapter review for chapter 126. And dude, this chapter is another example of Fujimoto knowing exactly what his audience is expecting out of the story and then proceeding to turn all things on their head immediately at the last minute to make us go, okay, I totally didn't see that one coming, which makes the reader more invested in checking out what happens next in the story, which is exactly what we got in this chapter, which was filled with the usual madness that you expect from a Chainsaw Man chapter, especially when Denji is involved. With the initial thoughts out of the way, let's back things up a bit and dive into the recap portion of the review. So the chapter opens up by proving everyone who said last week's victory was way too easy over the falling devil, everyone got proved absolutely correct. A primal devil that's on Earth for the first time was never going to go out this easily, and the expression, the more you F around, the more you find out, that's exactly what happened to Denji in this chapter. Denji is in combat with the falling devil who kicks him into a building, and as Denji is recovering, she's multitasking by picking up that ever so important apple that she needs for her main course, but also straightening out her head after Denji got all up in her guts by using those chainsaws on her. However, it's as the falling devil is speaking that Denji realizes that she's talking about Asa Mitaka and sending her to hell, and Denji's reaction isn't what a normal, rational thinking humans would be in this moment, where they would stop and think, why is this devil focused on this random girl from my school, and why is she so important, and why is it that she's involved in two devil related incidents back to back? No, Denji hears Asa Mitaka is in danger, and his first response is that falling devil needs to back off of my future potential ex-girlfriend. And I don't know if it's me, but the falling devil saying oh dear, it kind of feels both in character for the falling devil as well as a clever fourth wall break where the character is saying exactly what many of us were thinking reading that scene right there. It's then that Denji effed around a bit too much and he found out, because the falling devil unleashes its mental attack on Denji, which is something that we've been waiting to see, because if anyone has suffered trauma, it's Denji. Part 1 of Chainsaw Man was filled with so many moments that could have broken any normal person that we know Denji, who we can argue hasn't really dealt with the grief that he's experienced yet, depending on how you view things, has a lot of grief, and for a moment it absolutely works. We get our very first shots of Power and Aki in Chainsaw Man Part 2, with both of them being in Denji's memories right before they actually died, with Aki as the gun fiend and Power holding that birthday cake right before Makima decided to show everyone how much of a villain she was. This immediately sends Denji flying into the air, and for a moment you're thinking, okay, this is it. Denji's in deep trouble right now, but Fujimoto, as he always does, pulls the rug out from underneath their expectations, and Denji hard counters the falling devil in a way that's absolutely so stupid is brilliant. And honestly, it makes that line from Chainsaw Man Part 1 that was uttered by Kishibe sound so much more like it's foreshadowing right now. If you recall, Kishibe said that in order to survive this world, you're gonna have to have a few screws loose if you're willing to go into this world as a devil hunter. And when you think about it, only someone as crazy as Denji with those insane regen powers would have ever thought about cutting their own brains into pieces in order to counter the falling devil that he's fighting. God, again, this is so stupid and so reckless that it's actually brilliant. Denji might mess around and turn out to be a genius if we look at his character closely as the series itself moves on, because he might lack in book smarts. Ain't nobody saying Denji's smart, and he sure as hell does not have any sense of decorum, but where it counts on the battlefield, the guy has really pulled some impressive victories with some of the moves and tactics that he's used, going all the way back to Chainsaw Man Part 1, which really backs up what Kishibe said in the past. Only those who are missing a few screws are going to stick around in this devil hunting world. It's really impressive that Denji came up with a way to counter devils to use mental attacks by cutting up his brain, which makes a lot of sense. He's just going to regenerate in the process, and it's then that after Denji says he wants to eat a corn dog, the falling devil gives in, and she says she has to experience what being eaten is like at least once, which leads to Denji getting a few bites in before she literally reforms her body out of Denji's intestines and tries to walk off after she basically splits Denji in half and sends him flying off. And it's then that a mysterious person shows up to give Denji some of their blood, which if I had to guess, I would say that that's probably Yoshida. The uniform looks like a school uniform in my opinion. It looks similar to Denji's. I might be mistaken. That might be another devil hunter, but that line at the end about I still need you to fight Chainsaw Man, that's what's really got me pausing for a moment, because Yoshida wouldn't just say Chainsaw Man, I need you to fight again. At least I don't think he would. It's even more confusing when you consider that Fujimoto loves to screw with us as readers, and it feels as if it's obvious if it's Yoshida, so it might actually be someone else, like say Nayuta. However, if it is Yoshida, that means we likely have had a moment where Yoshida has learned about Mitaka being the target of the falling devil, and that's clearly going to raise some questions moving forward. Denji might be too horny to see the bigger picture, but not Yoshida. However, the chapter ends off with the falling devil finding Mitaka on the rooftop, which means we're probably going to get a big character driven moment for Asa Mitaka in the future, potentially something for Yoru as well. In all honesty, this chapter is exactly what you expected. It's super fast paced, but at the same time, it has enough zingers in it that got thrown at you to keep you turning the page, and that cliffhanger was done in a way to where you want more. How does Mitaka get out of her situation? Who was it that saved Denji? Those are all questions that we're asking. There's so many different ways this will go. Now, I will say this much. Fujimoto's decision to keep the chapter fast paced, but still have a good amount of exposition to add to the stakes and give us those interactions with Denji and the falling devil, that was a really nice decision right there. If the speed limit is like say 65 miles an hour and we were previously going 150 but we slowed down to 100 suddenly, we're still going really fast, but not as fast as before, but that's still pretty darn fast, and that's basically this chapter right here. What also makes this interesting about these interactions is that the falling devil clearly knows that Chainsaw Man's a hero in the eyes of many. She probably saw some billboards or Chainsaw Man merchandise, but when she said that she wasn't looking to fight Denji, it both gave me vibes of a devil who's self-aware, but also a devil who's focused on her goal. She's after Asa Mitaka at all costs, which makes me wonder, is there a time limit for how long she can even be on Earth? I love how Fujimoto layered that sense of danger with what we clearly see is an attempt to inject some of that craziness that comes from Denji being front and center in a fight in a chapter, as well as his crazy antics in battle, which get a laugh out of you as a reader. It's a very nice refresher from what we're used to with Asa Mitaka, who has a much heavier character in some ways than Denji. Not as much trauma as Denji, but the character is definitely written as heavy, but doesn't have those over-the-top antics and comedic moments that you got used to with Denji as well. That being said, now that Denji is in the area, my question is, what happens if this does end up being Denji and Yoshida who are in the area and they see the falling devil speaking to Mitaka? Denji might go, oh, that devil's trying to take my girlfriend, but Yoshida has been giving us sus vibes when it comes to Mitaka off and on. I think we might have to circle back around to something that we all suspected early on. He might not know that Mitaka has something devil related going on, but he's as cautious as ever around her, and he literally just caught her speaking to herself not that long ago. Yoshida is smart enough to start putting those pieces together, which might throw a wrench into Yoru's plans. Let's say they never raise an eyebrow at Mitaka getting them out that aquarium when we had the Eternity Devil situation. There's no way this gets overlooked now. That is some insane plot armor that happens. She's giving off the vibes of being a devil magnet. I know the guy from early on in Chainsaw Man said that you're most likely to die a death via a devil, but come on, this is so much if you're Yoshida. Two devils back to back with her as the center of attention right after you spoke to Fami. If that person is Yoshida, Yoru better start coming up with a backup plan. And speaking of planning something, I don't know if this was by mistake that we see Denji getting shown Aki in power, and after feeling that grief where he's clearly freaking out, especially with that side panel where you get the close-up of his eyes, he immediately runs away from that grief by cutting apart his brain. I get it, that was done to work around the falling devil's powers. I totally get that, but this also feels like Denji not facing the deaths of Aki in power. Once they died, it kind of felt like he got even more sex-starved and more focused on dealing with distractions like killing devils and raising Nayuta, but I'm with the people who think that he hasn't truly agreed. The fact that when we went into part 2, he was saying like, hey, I don't know who you are when he sees Yoshida, despite the fact that they had interactions with each other in the past, it makes me wonder, is he still in a way running away from all that stuff that deals with Aki and power, which is a nice parallel to Mitaka as well, which makes me want to see more in regards to both of their character interactions. So my question for you guys is, who do you guys think saved Denji? While you think that over, click here to watch this Chainsaw Man video, or click here to watch this anime video you see on the screen right now.